Welcome to Half 2-4. Today in the episode, Bayern reported when exactly the Munich side will sign Gordon, coaching madness in Chelsea and Real. Incredible return of Mourinho. Guardiola stated that City almost lost the chance to win the Premier League, and Real took a star for $9 million, even though $65 million were asked for him. We talk about all this and much more right now. Guardiola stated, the Premier League is almost lost. What? The man who just led City to a fourth consecutive FA Cup final says that the championship is slipping away. Is this a sincere admission of weakness or the dirtiest mental games in football history? Let's figure it out, because it smells like either a sensation or a brilliant bluff. So, in fact, City passed Southampton 2-1, a comeback, a hard victory. And by this, they set a historical record. They became the first team in the history of English football to reach the FA Cup final 4 seasons in a row. But instead of celebrating, Guardiola comes out to the press and turns on the all is lost mode. Treble? That is too far away. Only before the last match of the championship against Aston Villa. We will tell you if there is a chance. Right now, it is very far away. Now, it is important that all players can rest for 3 days. I told them not to think about football and just rest. Then the season will resume. We will have 5 matches, plus the FA Cup final. I would say the Premier League is almost lost. We are in second place again. We will see how it all ends, said Guardiola. And you know what is most interesting? Pep says this: when the tension in the race with Arsenal has reached its peak, Guardiola is trying to remove pressure from his stars and shift it onto the shoulders of Arteta. This is his classic trick to pretend to be a wounded beast before delivering the final blow. Don't fall for these tears. Guardiola is a football shark. When he says everything is lost, he is actually already preparing the champagne. This is a kind of anti-hello to London. He wants Arsenal to relax, believe in their victory, and then bam, and City takes everything in the last 5 matches. Pep is thinking about leaving the Etihad this summer, and leaving with a treble is his ideal finale. So, friends, keep your eyes open. The real scrap is just beginning. Chelsea again. The 5th coach in 4 years under Bluecoat leadership, Liam Rosenior worked at Stamford Bridge for 106 days and went home with compensation of almost €4.7 million after a 0-3 defeat to Brighton, the 5th defeat in a row, the 5th without a single goal scored. So, in fact, Rosenior came in January, replacing Maresca. He signed a contract until 2032, 7.5 years. A person who previously worked at Strasbourg, a mid-table side in League One. Do you understand? To one of the richest clubs in the world, where in the dressing room are Palmer, Enzo, Caicedo, Neto, and others, where every second player costs more than $100 million. And the players felt it immediately, according to TalkSport. They simply did not take him seriously. They said he is inexperienced. And they set a condition for the management. It is worth stopping here, because the problem here is much deeper than just a bad choice of coach. The question is how you can even sign a 7-year contract with a coach whose resume includes Hull City, Derby, and the French provinces. Yes, there are exceptions. Guardiola started at Barca, but he started where he played, where he was known, where he grew up. Company came to Bayern only after Anderlecht and Burnley, but Company is charisma and authority. Something special vibrates from him. And Rosenior's a good coach for his level, just not for this one. After the dismissal of Rosenior, Chelsea finally realized that they need a coach with Premier League experience and a proven level and not another experiment. But where does this understanding come from now? Where was it in January? And you know what is most interesting? This is not only about Rosenior. This is about the system, about the fact that in Chelsea, it seems, they do not understand themselves what they are building. They change coaches like gloves. Joao Felix, Garnacho, why did they buy them? Where does it all lead? And now, who is next? The main favorite now is Andoni Iraola, who is leaving Bournemouth in the summer. And he already openly states that he wants to stay in the Premier League and wants to coach Chelsea. Second on the list is Cesc Fabregas, a man who has already worked a miracle with Como in Serie A and who once played for Chelsea himself. Also among the favorites is Felipe Luis, a former player of the club who recently won the Copa Libertadores with Flamengo. My opinion? Iraola is a logical choice. Experience, style, results. But until the structure inside Chelsea is fixed, until they understand what they want from the club in general, you could even put Guardiola there. The question is not the coach. The question is that Blueco still looks like a person who bought a Ferrari, does not know how to drive, and is surprised that they are crashing.
A good experience to play.
And by the way, Garnacho, the person Chelsea was so proud of last summer, they signed him for 46 million euros from Manchester United. And you know what? Less than a year has passed and the club is already ready to sell him. So, in fact, for the whole season in the Premier League, 1 goal in 22 matches, 5 goal contributions in total. For a player who was bought for such money, this is a catastrophe. And let him explain that he arrived 2 months later than everyone else, without a preseason, that adaptation time is needed. All this is true, but Atletico is already sounding out the ground, and Sky Sports analysts see Garnacho in Serie A, Napoli, or Inter as the most logical options. Also among the possible directions, by the way, is Liverpool. And now the funniest thing. The estimated transfer value of Garnacho now is almost 60 million euros. That is, Chelsea can theoretically earn more on him than they spent. And this is after a failed season. This is either phenomenal luck or the market is just crazy, and probably both. And here again, the same question. Why was he bought at all? Garnacho showed instability even at United. He did not score, conflicted with Amorim, sat on the bench. Not a single signal that he is ready for the role of a leader in a top club. But Chelsea took him, together with Liam Delap, another newcomer who is now also being put up for sale after 1 season. Together, they cost the club over 80 million euros, and both are on the way out already in the summer. This is not a transfer mistake. This is a transfer philosophy. Buy, sell, buy again, and so on in a circle. Without an idea, without a plan, without understanding what team they are building, Garnacho himself says, I know what I am capable of. You will see next season. Maybe. But next season, he is definitely no longer at Chelsea. And to be honest, after everything that is happening at Stamford Bridge, maybe it is for the better. For him, Jose Mourinho wants to return to Real again. This is not a joke and not retro news. According to Fabrizio Romano, the Special One personally informed Real management that he is ready to drop everything for a second chance at the Santiago Bernabeu. Will Florentino Perez really dare to bring back the man who once burned this dressing room to the ground? Now to the facts. The situation in Real now is a catastrophe. Under the leadership of Alvaro Arbeloa, the team is stalling. They exited the Champions League and are 9 points behind Barcelona. The project that was built around stars of the level of Mbappe is bursting at the seams, and here appears Jose. Right now, Mourinho is coaching Benfica, where his contract is until 2027 with a salary of about 7 million euros a year. But you know what is most interesting? There's a secret clause in his deal. He can go to Real practically for free within 10 days after the end of the season. Jose is already openly telling players in Portugal that his heart is in Real. Perez has always felt a weakness for Mourinho, considering him the only one who can restore order with an iron fist. Although Jurgen Klopp is called the main target of the club, the candidacy of Jose is on the table and is becoming more real with every Real defeat. I think this is either a brilliant move or complete suicide. Bringing back Mourinho is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. Yes, he will remove the chaos in the dressing room, but at what price? He will not stand on ceremony with this Real nursery school, as Xabi Alonso said. Heads will simply fly there, and I don't even know if it might be too much for this Real. These stars already did not like the discipline of Xabi, and here is this much tougher Portuguese maniac. I would watch it, if only for the show. Are you ready for the return of the Special One? While Real is deciding the coaching issue, they have already solved the first transfer issue of the summer. And they did it, you could say, for free. So, in fact, Real officially informed Como that they are activating the buyback clause for Nico Paz. The deadline is May 30th, but the decision has already been made. All parties have been informed. The player knows. The club is preparing. The first transfer of the season is closed, and it costs 9 million euros. 9 million. For a player worth 65 million, according to Transfermarkt. When Como took Paz in 2024, they paid 6 million and agreed to a staged buyback clause. 9 million in 2026, 10 in 2027, plus Real kept 50% of a future sale. That is, the club sold the guy and still remained the owner of half his fate. This is no longer a transfer. This is a loan with the illusion of freedom. And while Nico Paz played in Como, he literally blew up Serie A. 37 matches, 13 goals, 8 assists. Fabregas says about him, he pulls moves out of a hat, does crazy things without limits. Argentina called him up to the national team. The whole continent was watching. And Real just waited for its turn with a pocket contract in hand. Como president Mirwan Suarso admitted defeat months ago. We realized that convincing Real to give up the buyback is impossible. We just have to enjoy Nico Paz while he is here. Honest and sad at the same time. The only question is what's next. Real already has Bellingham, Güler, Valverde, Camavinga. Paz's profile is similar, and where to put him is still unclear. But probably the new coach, whoever he may be, will be happy to have a 22-year-old Argentine at hand, whom Fabregas has already polished to a shine. My opinion, this is, perhaps, the smartest transfer of the decade. Real let the guy go on the loan of his dreams, gave him adult football, grown authority, and now brings him back for pennies. 9 million for a player worth 7 times more. Florentino Perez can be anything but not a fool. And Como, well, you should have read the fine print earlier. Are the sheikhs running out of money? Today, this is no longer a joke. PIF is stopping the financing of LIV Golf after 2026. $5 billion of investment in 4 years did not bring profit. What does this mean for Newcastle? Officially, the club is safe, and the Saudi delegation promises new capital investments. However, experts are skeptical. The owner's approach to Newcastle has always been conservative, and the latest steps are alarming. PIF has already sold a stake in Al Hilal for £276 million. The stadium plans are hanging, and Eddie Howe himself said, a difficult summer ahead. Challenges both on and off the pitch. The man clearly knows something. Riyadh's new strategy is tough. Priority on internal projects, and any international investment must yield real income. Under strict PSR rules and minimal sponsorship deals, Newcastle stops being an image toy and becomes a test of financial efficiency. You know what I think? The sobering up of the sheikhs is not a retreat, but a test of maturity. The sale of golf assets only confirms football for PIF remains a strategic priority, especially in the context of the 2034 World Cup. Newcastle stops being an ATM and becomes a systemic investor playing by the rules of the elite. Yes, the summer will be difficult, and transfers at the level of Mbappe are postponed, but it is precisely through financial discipline and the work of Eddie Howe that the club can become a real force in the Premier League for decades. Talking about players who are under contract at another club is disrespectful. That's what Bayern director Max Eberl said in an interview with ZDF. And he immediately added, "We can approach the market calmly and reasonably this summer." Classic. You say nothing, and by this, you say everything. So, in fact, Gordon has already talked to Harry Kane about a possible move to Bayern. The player himself is open to moving to the Bundesliga, and negotiations with his entourage are already planned. Company personally approved the transfer. That is, the coach is for it. The player is open. Management says, we don't comment on anyone. Everything is clear. One of the key factors is the example of Michael Olise. He left the Premier League for Bayern and literally exploded. Gordon looks at him and thinks, why not? The logic is clear. But there is one problem, and it's a big one: money. Bayern's strategy looks like this. First, agree with the player so that he says, I only want Bayern. and only then go to Newcastle with negotiations from a position of strength. The Munich side is not going to pay about £75 million, which English sources call. Newcastle, meanwhile, has made it clear 63 million euros is not even the start of the conversation. Gordon is signed until 2030. There is no release clause. And here, Arsenal and Liverpool appear. Both have long been following Gordon. And if the Premier League clubs are ready to pay the market price without theater, Bayern will have to either overbid or back down. My opinion? Eberl's move is brilliant in its simplicity. You stay silent publicly, press the player privately, wait until he says only Bayern, and then dictate terms to Newcastle. But there is one but. Newcastle already sold Isak last summer under pressure from the player. If Gordon does the same, the question will arise, is the club selling off leaders or building a future? Eddie Howe already said difficult summer. If Gordon leaves as well, it won't be a difficult summer. It will be a catastrophe.
Similar to sort of where I'm from in terms of the actual place.